Alrighty, what's going on, my man? How you doing?
Pretty good.
That's good. Oh, I was just adjusting myself. So what's up, man? I know you reached out to me. You wanted to have a little convo.
Yeah, I didn't necessarily have any specific thing to talk about in mind. I just find it very interesting that you're just what you're doing on TikTok in general.
Yeah, getting banned by other, well, getting blocked by other users. Found that interesting.
Yep.
I'm blocked by so many people. Oh my goodness.
People just block you.
Yeah, I understand why, but it's like, it comes with the territory, I suppose. But yeah, no, I actually love the conversation thing. Like, I don't like the debate thing. Like, I just like to talk to people.
Yeah.
Like, I was happy when I did the Vosh thing. It wasn't like a debate. It was a conversation. Same thing with Stixies. It was really fun. I enjoyed it a lot. So,
Yeah, for sure.
so
Yeah, because
yeah.
when you're debating someone, it feels like you're just trying to catch any like inconsistency.
Yeah,
they say, and
yeah.
then, like throw it back at them.
Yeah, it's like, like both people generally know what's right and wrong, and they're just
Yeah.
like, I'm gonna throw out the wrong, and if they don't catch it, I win. And it's like, that doesn't do anything positive. Who does that
Like,
help?
you just said this. Your entire argument's invalid.
Yeah, right. And it's like, oh no, yeah, no, I don't like that stuff. Makes it very icky.
Yeah, for sure.
So what's going on, man? What are you doing? What do you do on TikTok? I know you make songs.
Yeah, I do like comedy stuff. I started with very like self-deprecating and like dark humor, where basically the whole thing was it's like a series called Unmotivational Monday, where I basically try to make people as depressed as possible.
Mm.
So that's been like my main shtick. But then people recently have been getting mad at me because I've been making a little bit more
Political
like political
content.
content.
It's hard to stay out of it, though. Honestly,
It's
so
been
hard.
difficult. It's
Yeah.
been difficult. I'm trying to step back and be like, okay, I don't really want to talk about like.
Yeah, I get that.
Ever since I started, I would make like sort of semi-political content, but I would never like outright say like, vote for this person, don't vote for this person, because
Right, yeah.
once you step into that, then the floodgate of everyone hating you opens basically.
Absolutely, I understand that. It's funny because when I made my account, because this is my my third account, I only started in March of this year. I was shadow banned like less than a month on my first two accounts. I was being mean, it's like one of those. I'm an older guy, and I've never had social media like presence at all. So I was saying things that like I would make content that I liked, and then I would slowly just get unintentionally meaner. So like I know my content now sounds really mean, but like this is me reeling it in. So like I'm happy I got shadow banned the first two times, and then I came back and I was trying to just do stupid, really dumb jokes, like some things that were like a little edgy, and then like the Black Lives Matter thing happened, or rather George Floyd, that whole situation where he was killed by that police officer, and it was all you see, and it's like, okay, I got to talk, and then I started talking about it, and then like I blew up on like a very social, like a very political page. It was a young woman had posted about how the difference between Ferguson and what was it, the Minnesota or Minneapolis riots? No, the ones where the white people with guns were being obnoxious in front of the Capitol building.
Oh yeah, Charlottesville.
It was it, yeah, yeah. No, not that one. The one that was like to protesting masks.
Oh, I know which one.
Yeah, and she's like,
the recent one, yeah.
Yeah, she's like, what's the difference between these two? And I was just like, I hate this virtue signaling stuff. Like, that there is a bit of a difference. And one of it's like it was a whole thing. And then I don't know. Yeah, that's what hit, and I was like, oh well. And then my next hit was something making fun of the baby thing, stem cell babies.
Oh yeah.
You know, talk about that old meme.
Yeah,
We don't need men.
The
baby with the bone marrow
we
baby.
We can just make our own babies.
Yeah.
Anymore.
It's so funny.
Yeah.
That whole meme. It's funny about that too, because apparently, like, all the young girls who were talking about that, they're referencing a study from 2017, which is like, it says like you can't do it. It doesn't work. Like, the mice end up dying in like 2 weeks. They come out either like too big or too small, like giants or midgets or whatever the politically correct term is. But apparently, there's like something in 2018. They made it work, and like none of them referenced it, and I just saw it like a week ago, and I'm like, oh my god, you all were right. And like I was literally referencing, they would show me reference material, and I was like, I was just reading your reference material. You guys
could.
And
then you'd read the reference, and it would say it doesn't work.
Yeah, and I'm like, okay, well, this is what you're supplying, so I'm just gonna read your material. And then of course it turns out that they were right, but like they didn't know they were right. They should have just referenced the right reference material, and it would never would have happened.
Look up the correct.
Yeah, I don't know, because they're like, oh, in 2017 they did this. So I'm like, okay, 2017, whatever.
Yeah, cloning is a weird fucking thing. That's like
right.
the ethics of that is so like gray, and who knows.
It's
like,
very bizarre because it turns people more into like a weird computerish kind of a thing, and it's like eugenics.
Mhm.
You get into that whole thing, and like
yeah,
that's
like should you be able to like genetically modify your baby to be like more like
perfect.
what you want it to be?
Yeah,
Like,
no, that's it's. But you know what's crazy? I mean, maybe you should, only because like nowadays, like we live in Western society, and like it's very nice or very nice to people that couldn't exist in a regular like a normal society, right? Like you know, people with like Down syndrome and autism, and I'm not disagreeing. We should be doing that. We should be increasing quality of life, but the unintended consequence is like that natural selection aspect diminishes, and so you will start to have some people who will be just better for society versus people who may not necessarily be so for the advancement of society. I'm not saying they're bad for society. They're good for the humanity of society, not necessarily good for the technological advancement of society. And so maybe maybe it wouldn't hurt to have a couple of eugenic babies. You know, you make them super smart. Just have like 1% of the population that's like perfect, and then and then everybody else can just have fun. You know.
yeah.
That's how
And the perfect ones will start the hype houses, and then
Yeah, oh, right. Oh, because the hype houses, they're so perfect, man.
yeah.
I don't like hype houses.
I don't like that stuff either.
Did you ever get invited to one?
There was a house that was gonna be like we were gonna call ourselves the content house instead of the
Yeah.
hype house to kind of poke fun at them, but it never ended up happening.
It's so weird. I never understood it. I don't get it. I was invited to the Common Sense hype house. I'm like, that's cool. Like that, they're doing their thing. I don't like that it discourages like criticizing their content. And that's like all I do. So now I'm like I can't criticize their content, you know?
Well, and it's like, especially when it's political, when these
Yeah.
groups get together, and then what if one of them makes a really dumb point, and then it's like they're all now
You gotta back it
disagreeing
up.
with that.
Yeah,
now,
no, it's
now
so
everyone in the conservative hype house is like, well, he said it, so now that's what the conservative hype house says.
because you're
know?
too afraid to like, it's I just don't get it. Like that's what happens, and like it does. It just kind of furthers the whole hive mind thing.
Yeah.
You know, good for conservative.
I would definitely not get into a political something like that
No,
because of
never.
that very reason. I would say.
No, absolutely, I agree. So, it's one thing to do like regular content. It's like the gummy bear hype house. Like, what are you gonna get wrong? You know, your favorite color of gummy bear. Like that's all you can mess up.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, you make
Well-
a racially insensitive comment though on like a hype house, like a Republican hype house, and now everybody's like, "Well, I got to be a little racist today. We're just
I
gonna
guess.
let's just get through this one,
Yeah.
guys. Let's get through
We're
it."
all gonna get canceled now.
Yeah, right. I don't think well, I guess conservatives can get canceled in like real life, but I don't think you could be racist and get canceled in like a conservative hype house necessarily. I don't think that conservative people are racist, but like the racists tend to find more comfort.
They find a way to say it's out of context. No
Yeah,
matter what,
right.
you know?
I think most of it, like because I don't know, I'm not conservative. I don't think really in any capacity, but I like to consider myself like a new age conservative, or what I believe conservatism should be. Because right now conservatism is very much, hold on to dated values as hard as possible, rather than like let's make sure before we make a progressive step that it's the right step. And that's what I think conservatism should offset progressivism in a positive way, that makes sure that we don't just make progress for no reason. Like that's because it feels like a lot of progressivism nowadays is like progress at like any expense, rather than like positive progress that makes sense.
So your perspective would be like, let's be conservative with the progress, but not
Yeah,
just-
like
so-
make sure that you need to take a step before you take a step, which is funny because I'm a very big proponent of UBI. But like I still do believe that like there are a lot of ways that you can wrap that idea of UBI around a conservative. I think a lot of people have been like, oh, that's a good point, when I have the conversation with them about it.
I noticed that there were a lot of conservatives being like, Yang is great, even though like they had voted for Trump.
Yeah, because he didn't like call them assholes. Honestly, it's like so much of it. He's like, yeah, like we have like a lot of things. Like, hey, we have a big issue with like, because a lot of conservatives don't like people that live off of welfare, and like I don't particularly care for the trap that welfare sets, where it doesn't really allow you to move out of it, because if you make too much money, you lose your welfare. And so like UBI was like, oh hey, like you get this, it's either this or welfare. But if you go on this, you can work. It's unconditional, and like that's a big way to wean people off welfare, which is I think is like a $1.5 trillion a year in our expenditure anyway. So imagine we actually could get everyone off welfare onto a better system and redistribute wealth better, in a positive way that promoted people working. That's what I think.
And your
that UBI
perspective,
is.
like UBI would come from. I know we talked about like doing a value-added tax, or maybe cutting military spending.
Yeah, well, Yang's whole perspective was, and like I take it a little further, I guess, but Yang's perspective is the value-added tax is about $800 billion, and then well, the headline cost is 3 trillion, and then the value-added tax at half the rate of like Europe is $800 billion a year, and then like that coupled with the fact that it's an opt-in only for welfare, it lowers it down to about $1 trillion right off the bat, because you're either going to get the welfare or you're just not going to, it's one or the other. So you're already kind of budgeting for it. If you keep your welfare, you're not getting the UBI anyway. So that kind of cuts down to $1 trillion, and then the estimated economic benefit of pumping this money through these communities is like $500 billion of revenue. So you're left with about $500 billion a year, which is a lot. But seeing as Trump has already increased our annual federal deficit by $400 billion, you pick
right
one.
at that point where,
I'm okay. Yeah, it's like 100 more. Like, think about it. Everybody's got like an extra $10 in their pocket now. It's like, would you rather spend an extra $100 billion for $1,000 a month or $40 a month? It's like, I'll take the. And then you can start cutting costs.
Really, the ones who have benefited have been the 1%. I mean,
yeah,
that's just my perspective.
and I honestly think that I do think that Trump had like the best intentions. I think that he's another example of like an old man who's disconnected from real issues, but he was like the only one talking about job loss and whatnot in his own way. I don't think you can really get all these jobs back. It's not practical. Nobody was really talking about technology being the reason why we're losing so many jobs. Like, the upper class was using technologies to drive down wages and literally just eliminate jobs. And now we have whole towns that are on welfare programs. And it's like, people say, well, you're going to become lazy. But my perspective is we're either going to expand welfare so more people are on it and literally have no option to work, or we can implement a UBI and catch a myriad of problems almost instantly.
Yeah, because you can't just be like, okay, bring back coal at all costs.
Yeah, no, you can't. It's not, we got to start moving.
It's not practical.
Yeah, no, you got to start moving away from particular things. Our society's advancing, but at the same time, you can't just say like, oh, well, just have all these coal miners or truck drivers like just change their fields to scientists, their computer science. Not only do people not all have the capacity to deal with like numbers and math, but like also you're going to train a 50-year-old man. It doesn't matter how smart the 50-year-old man is. You're not retraining a 50-year-old scientist to be a welder. It goes every way around. Like, I think Yank talked about the retention rates, like 0 to 15%, like success rate of trying to reorient people's careers. And it's like, give them the money, slowly wean the job down, sure.
So what would you hope that those people then move on to doing?
Well, I would imagine that it wouldn't be like a direct shot out of like the complete loss of job. I would imagine that it wouldn't be. So like these truck drivers are slowly being, it's truck drivers specifically are slowly having their wages driven down. This would be really a way to give them an additional income and slowly wean the technology off. But in truck driving, I honestly think there should be kind of like some kind of law. Like you should have like a pilot in a truck, regardless of whether it's self-driving. But obviously, just like a plane, because it's automatic. If we had automated trucks, but you should still have a pilot in there just for safety measures. But then you could also
just a fully automated truck with no person.
Yeah, I feel like you should have a person. Yeah, oh, exactly. But then, of course, if you were just sitting in a car the whole day, not driving, they would say, well, we don't need to pay you 50 grand. We're just going to pay this guy 40 grand. And so you're going to see stuff like that happen. These jobs aren't necessarily being eliminated instantly, but like with all this money and this revenue, it increases so much economic flow that you can invest into your own small business and see if you can invest into your own small business. You actually get an income, which is like, you don't usually get an income for 5 years in a successful business. Better workers are encouraged to work for your business because they don't need to work with that traditional, like work up the ladder type company, which those types of jobs are disappearing. There's more money in the community for you to funnel into all this stuff and for them to spend on your thing, regardless of what it is. And so like the UBI is like an artificial way to really stimulate like a person-first capitalist economy. And that's my whole perspective. And like, of course, it's not going to be perfect. But like, we're so desperate for perfection that we don't realize nothing has ever been done that was perfect for everybody. Ever. And I think we're very lost on that. Like, everybody needs the perfect person, the perfect candidate, the perfect this, the perfect that, the perfect idea. And like, that's why the perspective right now is either Trump is amazing or he's absolute dog shit from the biggest, loudest voices. And like, you can see that kind of mentality in society.
Yeah, I personally don't really like Trump or Biden. I just kind of feel like you have to. It really is like a
what about Kanye?
Lesser of two evils kind of thing.
What about,
or Kanye? Yeah, Kanye's got my vote for sure.
He said something kind of okay. Like, he was talking about how there's a particular culture in like poorer black communities, and I think that there's some truth to that. I don't think that the opportunity is necessarily there to reward your hard work if you do decide to work hard. But, he said something that kind of does make sense. I know that a lot of progressives tend to dismiss that talking point. I tend to acknowledge it. I mean, it's a symptom of systemic racism. Like these poor communities lacking opportunities because they were being denied. Of course, they're going to develop a particular culture around gangs and violence because you have to live. You know, we all need to live. So I'm gonna if it came down, I would sell drugs if I had to live. I don't like, you know what I mean. So if that was my only option,
I think it's the problem is demonizing those communities rather than like looking at the source of the problem.
for sure. Most of the time, it's like, oh, it's their fault. We don't need to do anything. That's what it usually is. They're not like saying like, yeah, this is an issue. Let's fix it. They're like, yeah, but they're just a bunch of animals, so we don't need to do anything for them. And it's like, that's not nice. You know,
it's definitely not gonna.
It's not going to fix anything. Yeah,
change,
no.
yeah.
But I've got a lot of people rallied somewhat on the idea of UBI. A lot of my followers tend to be conservative, and they come from a very good place. A lot of them, you know, I had a guy yesterday. He's like, "Hey, I'm like a first generation immigrant. My parents came here. They were migrants. They had like no money, and they worked really hard. And it's like, why can't black people do that?" And then like we had, like, you know, not in like a negative way, but it's like, okay. Then we had the conversation about oppressed white groups and that the reason that they're no longer oppressed is generational wealth and actual opportunity existing. And then we had a conversation about how black people can only vote for 55 years. They've had a generation. It's probably the worst generation in modern history to actually climb the socioeconomic ladder because people are just slowly losing wages. Yeah.
I don't like when people point out like a specific success story and then act like the whole system is working that way. Like the American dream of starting at nothing and
building it up to something
is like very rare.
It's going away very quickly. That's the thing. It's very, very quickly. If we had this conversation 15 years ago, I don't think it would have been the same. But once we had like we had like a huge crash. Once we hit the Great Recession, it pushed this technology issues like so much faster and gave us so like little time to deal with it. But it was a huge deal, and I honestly think that we did become more racist as a country back then. Once everything crashed, because people's bubbles started to shrink, how much they cared about other groups started to shrink, because they had less money and they had less of a means to live the way that they were accustomed to living. And like I think
got more into tribalism. And
yeah, and it's like, oh, you know, all the Hispanic people, they're taking our jobs. And like, there's a somewhat of a level of truth to that, kind of. There's a little bit of a level of truth to that, but it's nowhere near the biggest issue by any means. It's mostly money being just siphoned from the middle class. Yeah. So, you know, it's such a complex issue.
I just think you need to focus on like Jeff Bezos before you focus on like Hispanic people. That's just
right. No, I get it. I see. My thing is like I get the legal immigration. My thing with like asylum seekers in particular is like we're so stuck in the conversation of should we build a wall or not to keep them out, and no one wants to talk about why they're leaving in the first place. And like for a country that very easily walked through Iraq in 30 days, we're not even considering the idea of pressuring these like Southern and Central American countries to better their people down there, especially since we give them money. And nobody's like, hey, we give you like $1 billion. Like maybe don't treat your people like shit. You know, we don't care.
Maybe don't create a society where they want to run from you constantly.
Yeah, that's like why not? Like I would be in favor of giving them more money if they like. They don't have to have perfect quality of life. I'm sure these people don't really necessarily want perfect quality of life. They just want to feel safe, be able to eat and chill and like work and just be happy. Yeah. And like we're not even considering that as an option, you know?
Yeah, totally.
So, yeah. So you're not a Trump fan, huh?
No, not particularly. I just feel like I've always been someone who wants to see both sides and not like just demonize someone and be like, you're a Republican, you're a terrible person. It just feels like with Trump, it's just too much pushing into some authoritarian kind of, you know, ideology, which is definitely like, that's something that I'm like, please stay away from that stuff. But
yeah, I get that. I understand that. And then it's unfortunate that a lot of conservatives will defend him because they feel like there's only one other choice, and they more closely align to the idea of a, you know, freer government, smaller government. Even though I don't know if that's what we're seeing, but I get that. It's so complex.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that definitely boils down to the problems of the two-party system for sure.
Oh yeah.
Because you don't have more options. Like my girlfriend lives in Australia, and they have 6 parties there.
Yeah.
So you can have so much more nuance between like what the different candidates are offering, and you know, here's the very liberal, here's the very conservative, and then you have everyone in the middle, and then maybe someone in the middle who makes the most sense will be the one that ends up.
For sure. Yeah. No, we should do something like that. Like I'm in favor. You know, it's so funny. I'm in favor of like some kind of a system where we have like 5 to 10 parties, whatever. I don't know, 5 to 10 candidates at the end of it that we vote on, some kind of ranking system. And like maybe that's not the exact way to do it. But you know, we are very stuck in like, oh, should we do electoral college or should we do popular votes? Like, why are those our 2 options? Like, both of those options aren't very good. And what's so funny is like you'll never guess who actually hooked me on the idea of like having like a multiple party system. It was the real Heisenberg.
Oh, that dude.
It was the real Heisenberg. I had a conversation with him when I was still doing like Big American Gut podcasting, instead of like a Papa Gut, and like he was he's not a bad guy, but he was out of his mind. And that was like the one really good thing he said. I'm like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. We had a whole conversation about how the Smurfs were communists, and he was like an anarcho communist, and you know, he's a weird guy. He's permanently banned though. So.
Oh, from TikTok.
Yeah.
Yeah, all I've really seen of that dude has been people just duetting his weird things he said.
yeah, he got he said did some very insensitive things. He was like he made like a Fortnite joke where he made like a 9/11 joke, and it was just like a whole, you know, and he put it on Twitch. He put it on TikTok, and he got that taken down. And he was being very baity in argument. He just baited a lot. He was like very like you know, I know my content can be controversial, but he was just like it was intentional.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I think that Black Lives Matter is a terrorist organization. All right, well, you know, I don't think he believed it. I don't even think he believed it. If he believed it,
I think he's just trying to stir up controversy for.
Yeah, definitely.
That's what I've kind of noticed. Like that guy, Nick Foster jokes got me angry, and I'm like, that's what he's trying to do, you know?
Yeah, he's an alright guy. I saw like the video you guys had. You know, you know, I think he believes more in what he's saying to an extent, but I also think it's one of those things where you get carried away. When you're making jokes, people are like, I like this, and you're like, I'm gonna make more of this, and like I got carried away with it real bad.
I think satire is a confusing thing because he's just like CEO of irony and satire. It's like, okay, well, satire is supposed to be like critiquing the other side when you say something satirically, and when you just are saying like edgy, inflammatory things, like that's not necessarily satire.
I get that, and like especially when you become very dry with your humor. Like my humor is very dry, so a lot of people are like, wow, you're really transphobic or homophobic or racist or sexist. And it's like I'm not, you know. But like what's really the worst for me is that like I make a ton of content. I don't stop shit posting, and then I honestly make. I wouldn't say even. I mean, I lean more towards, I guess you can call it like a conservative sympathizer or whatever. But like all the videos that hit are like the criticisms on, you know, like, oh, kill all men, or making jokes about that. And then I have so much other stuff in it that's very political that doesn't hit that much. And it's like people aren't seeing that. They just look at the For You page, you go, wow, this guy's gross, because he made a joke about like aborting trans people. It's very insensitive, but which I get that, and they just write it off, you know. I've been blocked by a lot of big people, like the fat raccoon. I think that's her.
Yeah, I saw that you had a little bit.
A little tiff.
I agree with the points that she makes a lot of times, but she put out a video where she was like criticizing people for being condescending, and I'm like, your entire thing is that you're like Tony's condescending. Yeah.
Yeah, she's very condescending. I mean, I can be too. I try not to be, but like, you know, my thing was because I think what got her to block, she said it was my fans, and I get that. A lot of them can be very obnoxious. I've been trying very hard, especially lately, to block people who are for like, you know, doxing or threatening people with any type of you know, assault in any capacity.
I noticed that you were like taking down your fans who are being toxic. And
yeah, I'm trying to block them because I don't like that. I like it when they go, oh, Papa has spoken. It's funny, like that's funny to me.
Yeah.
But like when they're like, oh, I'm gonna dox you, I'm gonna find your house number, or I'm gonna like, you know, sexually assault you. I'm like, what is wrong with you? Like these are people. It's just like I don't even hate anybody I duet. Like it's just, you know. And she had made a point about how you can't be racist towards white people, and I contested that point. And I contested it very well, and she blocked me. And I think that there's a level of truth in my fans being toxic, but there's also a level of truth to people not wanting to hear what I have to say and feeling kind of stupid after I say it. Because I watched it, she made a video afterwards after she blocked me that was like, oh, this isn't what I meant to say, and she basically just agreed with what I said. So it's like, you know, like there's a difference between systemic racism and like, you know, individualized racism and a whole, you know, whole spiel. But like it's ironic because her followers are kind of toxic too.
Yeah, I just hate the whole idea that like, once someone is like your fan and then they go and speak on your behalf, then people are like, his community is toxic. It's like, okay, well he didn't
you know, it's like
condone that person being really toxic.
No, right. And it's like, you know, honestly, part of me is like like when it comes to like the assault, there's no justification. Part of me on the other stuff, it's like, you know, toughen up a little bit, you know, just toughen up a little bit. Like you felt a little silly, and you know.
I've been realizing recently I'm a little bit of a weakling, and I'm not very good at people hating on me.
That's all right. That's the thing, but you just gotta like, you get used to it. I'm used to it all the time. You know,
I'm definitely more used to it than like my girlfriend is. If she ever gets a comment like commenting on how she looks, she's like, "Oh, I feel terrible," and I'm like, "People say I look disgusting every day." It's
yeah,
like, you know, whatever.
yeah. I don't even care. People call like the worst. Like people call me like fat, whatever. Like the one of the things is like I'm a predator now because I only do at young girls. I made a whole video on it this morning. I had to because it's just like annoying because that's the videos that you're seeing, and I don't look at people's age or anything. I just look at their content. I go, this is stupid. That's it. That's all. That's my whole line of reasoning. You could make the argument like maybe you shouldn't be making you calling out young people in general. That's like, well, how else are they going to learn? And again, maybe I'm wrong, but that's my perspective. It's not like my intention is. Everybody has this weird subconscious perspective that any interaction with an older man with a younger person or younger girl is somehow sexual instantly in nature. And like, I don't sexualize anybody ever except for myself.
Sad that we've gotten to that point where that's like.
Yeah, no.
People feeling that way because there have been so many predators. But.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true. But I keep my content very like I don't make any sexual. I make sexual content about myself. Like I'll make. I don't know if you've seen any of that. My OnlyFans. Like they kept asking me. It's like a joke, So I have like I do like I have like a painting.
I do that too. I'll do that too. I'll sexualize myself as a joke.
Yeah, it's fun. And some people like it. I've gotten a couple of positive. I got some positive responses.
You gotta find your people.
Yeah, right. So.
But you wouldn't think that like maybe it's taking cheap shots because it is someone who's young and hasn't like fully developed their,
Well, my thing is
opinions on things.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's my thing is like how do you develop opinions? So my thing is that there's we could break it down to two general trajectories for this individual. They're either going to keep saying things that are wrong. I mean, I don't think that I have had some bad takes, but generally speaking, what I critique or what I criticize, they're wrong, or there at least is a very solid argument. So they can either continue to be wrong, and it's politically correct to be wrong in a progressive sense right now. You can say the wrong thing and not get called out, and like it's okay because as long as you're progressive. So the trajectory is either to allow them to continue to grow in a way where they're demonizing who they meet. Either they seem as it's a lot of it's like demonizing the oppressor or oppressing the oppressor is a lot of the subtext. And I know it's just TikTok memes, but not calling that out and not stopping that will continue that hate narrative. While calling it out, I would imagine would stop it. Right?
Yeah.
That's my whole perspective on the whole thing.
But then if you have people who then go and like harass them, then it keeps the hate going, which is why I'm glad
That's
that
true.
Yeah,
well, and to an extent, there's only so much I can do because a lot of the call-out content, although my jokes are usually like showing some kind of hypocrisy. I try to make that to an extent. Yeah. Like they'll be like, "Oh, men are all like, oh, what did they say the other day? Like, oh, men are all pigs," and I'm like, "Oh, I guess women are all farmers then because you raised us." And it's like that's a silly jab. Most of those are jokes. The real serious ones, I try to be very articulate and concise and non-threatening and non-demonizing when I make my point. I think I get that through, but these younger kids, they do just go absolutely insane. And people value the comments too much.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And yeah, the more I watched your content, the more I felt like he's being really level-headed with everything he's saying, I feel like. But yeah, I definitely agree with the whole... It's like, okay, well, you made the joke that we're all dishwashers, so we're going to say that you're all toolboxes, or,
right,
you
or wallets.
You've been this way towards us, so we're going to say kill all men, and it's like, okay, well, that's not really going to solve anything. It's just...
Yeah, right. And it's like, at the end of the day, the way to become equal is to treat each other equally. And unfortunately, and I'm going to acknowledge it, that's asking the people who are generally oppressed to, not... have any emotions, right? To an extent, because you're saying like, oh well, we've been in an advantageous position for however long. Now you have to be the better person and not be mad about it. And I know that's a lot to ask, but it's what needs to be done. And like I would also argue too, because there's a lot of this nowadays. There's a lot of younger people, regardless of identity group. They're usually the loudest. They're usually, from my perspective, from what I see, from my read on them, they're usually more entitled. They're usually more, I say privileged people. Speaking the loudest out against particular things. Yeah. They're absorbing real issues of the past, and they're projecting those issues onto themselves and over-exaggerating things that they probably never really experienced. Because I know a lot, because I worked with a lot of like, you know, I live in like a very moderate kind of area. I work with a lot of Black and Hispanic people. They're my bosses. They're people who work under me. They're people who like, you know, are my equals from a, you know, you know, equals in the sense of my job. And like they're all of them have been, they're not rich in any capacity. They're not formally educated. They're all working hard and they're just trying to get through their shit. And they've all experienced these things. And the way they talk about them is nowhere near the way that these young kids who have never experienced them before talk about. You know, it's very different. And like that's one of the things that bothers me, because I feel like it does devalue the movement when you hijack it from a position where you've never really experienced the issues, and then you just perpetuate hate. And that's one of the things I like to call out.
I think it is a symptom of the social media age we're living in, where they'll scroll through TikTok, and TikTok's so like algorithm driven that it'll just keep feeding you, you know, maybe more and more
things that make you angry.
Things that make you angry down that rabbit hole, and then you get this idea that this is how things are. So
No, yeah, absolutely.
You know, this person said this, and you know I like them, so I'm going to say this and add this to it, and then it just keeps snowballing. And I definitely do agree that like when you say kill all men, like you'll have the people on your side who agree with that, but then the people who are really far on the other side will then be like, okay, well this is what, you know, I was right, women are terrible because they're saying kill all men, and then it just pushes them. It just keeps pushing people further and further away. Like I've seen so many kids like with this whole like everything's for the boys, or like
like the memes,
like girls need to stick together and guys need to stick together, and I'm just kind of like, why can't we all just like, I don't know, get along?
Yeah, no, it's said too, because a lot of guys will make jokes and like they may take it too far, they may not, and then women respond like, you know, they'll take it personally and they'll try to perpetuate their own joke, and then guys will like just shit on it so hard, and they'll invalidate their jokes so hard.
For sure.
Yeah, right, but they'll invalidate women's jokes so hard, like, yeah, you're not funny, and it's like, oh my god, like what the hell are you doing? It's just nuts. So, you know, a lot of hatred nowadays. It's one of those things. It's so crazy too, because like 10 years ago, like when I'm 30, so when I was growing up, like the whole thing to do, I don't think people realize this, but the way to be not racist, or to respect people back in the day, and I know it's only 10 years ago, but we've moved so fast with technology that like 15 years ago, from like 2005 to 2020, in my opinion, there was like just as much progress as like 1950 to 2000, because just we have like this.
Sure, we're moving so fast.
Yeah, and so 15 years ago, it was politically correct to just like not acknowledge somebody's differences. You'd be like, you're equal, we're equals. Like I'm not going to acknowledge that you're black. I'm not going to acknowledge that you're a woman, in like a sense. And now the narrative is very much, if you don't acknowledge my differences, like you're a racist. And it's like it's harder for older people, or like middle-aged or older people in some cases, to like, you know, you were raised to not see the differences, and now it's like this huge shift towards like you have to acknowledge me, and like it's fair, you should acknowledge them, but it's like pushing more towards like you have to pander to me almost, and the things that I say and think. At least that's how it feels in some senses.
Yeah, I see what you're saying with that. I just think I just don't like when someone is calling out a legitimate issue and then the response is like all lives matter, or I don't see color.
Oh,
like trying to devalue what they're saying, you know?
Yeah, for sure. No, I get that.
As long as you like listen to like legitimate problems that people bring up, then you can say all lives matter, because they do, you know, but it's when you say it in like a defensive way, that's when it's like.
Yeah, no, it's the, you know, I made a video on it. I don't know if it ever gained traction. I made a couple on it, but you know, they don't hit that much because I have a conservative base and progressives block me. But I made a point. It's like, you know, like, yeah, no, if people were saying black all lives matter as like a way of like, hey, we all matter, we need to focus on black issues, that's fine. But people do say to devalue it. I think that there's a level of frustration and a potential fear of the fact that they think that black people want to take over and become.
They want more.
Yeah, they want more.
They assume that when you're talking about something, it means you want more.
And then there are very few voices, but there are some voices who do perpetuate that idea of like, oh, you're lucky we don't want revenge. And now you're kind of like asking for like a weird race war. It's like, you're lucky we don't want revenge. It's like, you know, there's so many people, I think, the white people, that are like trying to push for equality in whatever sense that they can. And then you have people going like, oh, well, you know, you're lucky we don't want revenge. It's like, well, we could stop doing that. And I know we shouldn't stop doing that, but that's like a lot of times that's the first reaction from a lot of people who are like, oh, I want to help, and it's like, oh yeah, well, you're lucky we don't want to kill you, and it's like, okay, I don't want to help you anymore, you know. And it's like little things, like I know this is silly, but even like the term white privilege, right? because I agree with the fundamentals of white privilege. Like it exists. I understand that the idea that being white in America means that you don't, have as many disadvantages as like people of color. Most of them. I mean, Asian people tend to do better, but
just kind of like an across the board.
yeah. But it's like
It's
one of
not
those
on an individual level.
right. But it was it's almost poor delivery. Because I guarantee if you didn't, I feel like if you, it's just because you have a lot of people where they want to help, and then you're like, oh, well, you have white privilege, like you're just inherently privileged, and like either, it's very demeaning to people who've worked very hard, rather than.
And they're like, I was born into a shitty situation.
Yeah.
Saying I have privilege. It's like we're not
Yeah.
saying you necessarily. It's like
right, and I feel like you could have done a tag of like people of color disprivilege or black disprivilege could have, sent the same message across. In a different
or that
way.
like feminism is called feminism when it should just be like about equality, and then when people are like, I'm egalitarian because I want equality, it's like, okay,
Yeah,
well,
right.
feminism should want equality too, like that.
Right, yeah, no. Well, I get feminism and Black Lives Matter. It's just like the white privilege is so antagonistic. I don't find feminism inherently antagonistic. I don't find Black Lives Matter inherently antagonistic. Because it's saying, hey, we matter too. It's saying, hey, women matter too. Black people matter too. But then white privilege is like, white people, you suck. That's kind of what you get out of that tagline. And again,
It kind of depends how they weaponize it.
Yeah, right. And a lot of times you get, it's like if you speak on an issue as a white person, even if you speak out of ignorance, and that happens, you're like, oh, well, you're privileged, so like you're dumb. Like what you're saying doesn't matter. And it's like, well, if what they're saying is wrong, just explain it to them. Take the time out of your day. Like that's the whole thing. You want change.
Don't just say like you're privileged and then that's like shutting down their entire.
Right. It's like I got you. You're privileged, and that person's like, I'm not really privileged, so fuck you. I don't like Black Lives Matter now. Like I know, I know that's like a way of like projecting too much responsibility onto like the people that are activists, but that's kind of what activism is, and that's what it needs to be. It should be about awareness, but it should be about the specific awareness. And if you can't elevator pitch why Black Lives Matter, or if you can't elevator pitch systemic racism, then what are you doing? What are you focusing your time on? Just yelling, screaming, and devaluing conservative people, and that doesn't help because it just pushes them farther towards that conservative sense.
Yeah, it just pushes the polarization for sure.
Yeah, right. Because I can elevator pitch systemic racism. I do it in these all the time because people are like, "How does it exist?" And I say, "Well, if you really wanted to formally understand it, you could Google that." So I just ask, like, "Do you think white and black people are equal?" And they're like, "Yeah, of course." And I'll say, why are black people causing more crime at a disproportional rate? Why are they, committing more crime? Why are they poorer? It's like, well, it's an opportunity thing. It's like they're not working hard enough. And I was like, "Do you think you could work hard if you were bogged down constantly by, different rules and laws that push you into particular areas?" And then I always go into the white oppression thing. It's like, do you think they need opportunity? Do you feel like we have our classes are like we have a fair class system nowadays? It's like, no, not at all. It's like, okay, there you go. It almost always goes that way. And then people don't agree with the UBI all the time, but now they acknowledge that there's a class issue, and the way for black people to get out of their particular struggles is by creating class balance. That's usually all it takes.
I've seen people who will like not acknowledge race issues, but then acknowledge class issues.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like that. But you can't ignore that we aren't that far removed from the civil rights movement. We aren't that far removed from when redlining was a thing. So it makes sense that a lot of that is still the echoes of
for sure
long ago.
No, absolutely, because I agree. But my perspective is like, and I say it sometimes, like, does it matter? I ask people, do you really matter? I don't really care if you believe in systemic racism. I know it's ignorant. My thing is, like, I'd rather just get the message across, which is like, if we can agree on, strengthening classes, and we can agree on like prison reform, we've reversed racism, regardless of whether we think it's racism or class issue. And a lot of times it works, because that's the thing. A lot of the solutions that we need in society will disproportionately positively affect black people, and but people are mostly like, yeah, we have a prison issue. Yeah, like they'll acknowledge. They don't know how to get to the solution, but they'll acknowledge the issue. And I know that some people brush it off. That's a class issue. Well, black people don't work hard enough. But in my experience, from who I talk to, and I know it's very anecdotal, but they're very on board with like a class shift, a way of like pulling more funds into the middle and lower class. Especially when you tell them that we own 10% of the wealth, and we're like 99% of the people. Yeah, it's insane.
But I definitely do think there needs to be some way that we're gonna stop black people being prosecuted at higher rates for the same crimes. Like, I feel like that's just inexcusable in my opinion.
For sure. My thing is, for me, I'm a very simplistic man. Like, again, money. Like, if you put money into there and you reverse the stereotypes that are associated with being black, then there's no more of an issue in that sense, in my opinion. It's a slow process. I know a lot of people talk about how it's flat out racism when judges give black people higher sentencing. I don't necessarily think it's intentional flat out racism. I know it sounds silly. I think it more has to do with like the halo effect. There's definitely something to be said about the European beauty standards are very white, and so like when you see a black person committing a crime, you're more likely to be like, fuck you, you know? Or rather, you see a white person, you're more likely to be lenient on them. On top of that, black people tend to be very impoverished. Black people tend to be very corralled into impoverished communities, whereas I see more lower and middle class white people coexisting together in particular communities. And so when you're a judge and you're seeing all poor black people, you're going to generate like a bias against black people. And be like, yeah, they all deserve the worst sentence. They're not going to change anyway. But then all of a sudden you see you see some poor white people committing the exact same crime with the exact same record. And then you're like, yeah, but I see some nice white people that are well off. So I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. And I don't mean to justify racism. You may be able to call it racist, but it's like an unintentional consequence of like systems in the past that are racist, of corralling people into particular areas. So that's kind of how I perceive it.
And I think as we get more and more, judges who are hopefully more removed from that it'll,
yeah, I mean, part of it is old
biases.
people. Yeah, so part of it's just like old people. Honestly,
yeah, just get rid of all the old people.
I've never met an old cop that wasn't a racist. I'm not trying to be a dick. I appreciate cops. I have a lot of friends who are cops, but really old people who are cops are legitimately racist. I mean, that's my experience.
I mean, it's just because
old people are racist.
The civil rights movement was in the 60s.
Yeah, right, and they dealt with a lot of it. Like I don't want to get into who specifically, but there was a particular person that I'm friends with, and their grandfather, when they were passing, they needed like hospice or whatever. They needed like a caretaker, and there was like no blacks or Hispanics. He didn't say it that nicely, but like,
my great grandpa said something about like that N-words were like messing up his neighborhood or whatever.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's a lot of old people, and that's why it's like I don't think that Biden or Trump are necessarily racist, but I don't care. We don't really need any more 70-year-old white men running anything. The white doesn't necessarily matter, but we need like let's get like a 40 or a 50-year-old who's a little more engaged. I would have been happy with like Pete Buttigieg. Honestly,
yeah.
I thought he was pretty decent. I liked his healthcare plan. I like the idea of opening up healthcare, but not completely evaporating private healthcare yet. Let it phase out itself. If it can't keep up, let it phase itself out. But it might be able to actually reinvent itself in a way that helps a lot. Because I do believe in the idea, if you have more money, I think you should have access to better things in general. We just need to create a standard of what is acceptable for healthcare, and then allow better things on top of that. So acceptable, obviously.
There should be like a base
yeah,
standard.
a fair base standard. You're covered. You can go to a doctor. You can get your medication. If you're poor, you have coverage, you're fine, you're not going to die. And then rich people, it's like, I don't want to wait a month and a half for a doctor's appointment, Which is okay. I wait a month and a half for a doctor's appointment. I have okay insurance, but it's just because there's such a high demand, because I have a good doctor.
Yeah, for me, I think the biggest thing is like the pharmaceutical companies being able to charge $300 for insulin or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
And,
I think it's more than that. It's insanity. Yeah, no, we need to take care of that.
I think there needs to totally be more regulations on the hospitals and the
for sure.
companies.
They'll charge like
charging through the roof on people.
They'll charge like $50 for an Advil, something like that.
Yeah,
it's insanity. It's honestly, it's
Until you
criminal.
Get it written off or whatever.
Yeah, it's criminal.
Yeah.
Like honestly, that's why like we need something to come in, and that's my perspective. Is like if we open everything up to Medicare, up to everybody, right? My perspective is we open it up. Obviously, increase taxes, fine. And then anybody based on their pay can go opt in. So like obviously somebody that doesn't make any money gets it for free. But if you're a middle class guy, maybe you get it for however much money a week. You'd probably either break even with your current insurance or be less, but you'd have full coverage. And so like I would be like, yeah, screw it. I'm going to go on to this. I'm paying the same. I pay $95 a week for my insurance. It's insane. So I'm going to go onto Medicare. And now it's $95 still, but now I don't have a copay. And then these private insurance companies will either completely phase out, or they'll go, oh, we have to stop harassing people, or they'll create a tier system and say, okay, we'll give you supplemental coverage for another $15 a week, something like that, or they'll phase out. Then no loss, but at least it's slow enough. Because like most people, they did a study, 70% of people are okay with some form of opt-in for poor people, as long as they get the option to keep their private insurance, because people are just afraid of the new system, and I understand it.
Yeah, I think like I liked a lot of things about Bernie, but definitely when you come in with this idea of like let's burn everything to the ground, like it's very hard to get everyone on board with that.
It is, and it's so sad because he's such a nice guy. He's such a genuine guy.
And it's one of those things where like you kind of have to play the game. If you just come in guns blazing, like,
yeah, right.
how are you gonna get everyone to agree with you if you're just like, you know, let's just burn the whole thing, you know?
Yeah, no, and he could have been great if he was just a little less extreme with some of his policies. Like opening up Medicare would have been fine. The $15 an hour minimum wage, I'm not a big fan of. I think it promotes monopolies because, you know, small businesses can't afford it, and so these big businesses can. So they either pay for it or they'll just automate. So those are like my issues. That's why at UBI, very pro small business. You keep bringing it up because, you know, that's my whole perspective.
Because it's a good idea. I mean,
I
yeah,
love it.
I think I probably would have voted for Yang.
Oh,
honestly.
I would have too.
I think he was probably my favorite out of them. Probably him and then Bernie, but then I definitely feel like Bernie was too.
Yeah, no, I get that. It's one of those things where a lot of his plans after implemented, like you really can't go back. You know, if we crash the private healthcare industry with like a full-on Medicare for all, we don't know what the system shock's going to be on the economy. But Yang, I think he had fantastic ideas. He had so many good ideas. I don't know if he had the cojones to really get those ideas implemented correctly, because he's, you know, he's a very passive guy. He's really nice. I don't know if he could have like muscled people into doing it. You know, because you have to do a lot of legwork. Like if you give UBIs out, if you do a UBI, there's communities that have particular cultures. You need to reach out to those community leaders, and you need to get them to rally around like investing in themselves. And like I mean, community leaders, and there are gang areas where the community leaders are legitimate gangs, and like it sounds like you shouldn't, but honestly, I don't see an issue with the president going to some gang and saying, "Listen, we want to do this." Push people in the right direction. It sounds crazy. I know it sounds crazy, but like, I don't know. I feel like there's something there, you know. I would do that.
Get the gangs involved.
Could you imagine if you had like, because they're kind of our community leaders. Could you imagine if you had like the president of the United States sit down with like a Crip like leader and be like, listen, this is what we want to do. You know, you could sell drugs, but stop killing each other. You know, you do you. Let people invest in their businesses. I know it's crazy, but like if you did that and you pulled it off, you would be like the greatest president that this country has ever seen.
Yeah, I definitely just think the whole like thug narrative, it's not gonna fix anything when you're just like, here's the thugs, here's the not thugs.
Yeah, right.
And you're not gonna see that the thugs have some, you know, they're doing a lot of bad things, but then there might be some, you know, some legitimate.
Yeah, right. My thing is there's a legitimate reason for it. Like nobody developed. I don't. You know, it's a power struggle when you don't have a lot of money and then you start. You want to control the power of a particular thing, which is drug selling, or, you know, and then that kind of goes off, and like everybody criticizes like the Crips and everything, but then we romanticize the mafia, and it's like, what are you doing? You can't draw the parallel between you can't draw the parallel between white oppressed groups and black oppressed groups, and then champion the mafia and then demonize, you know, the Bloods and the Crips, because it's the same thing.
Yeah, for sure. I just think it's sad that there's communities where like those things have to arise, you know.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, you know, it's terrible, and again, it's a failure of the government, in my opinion. You know, generally speaking, the opportunity isn't there. If the opportunity was there and we had gangs, I'd be like, screw them. But the opportunity isn't there then, and so like, yeah, no, I agree. Very yucky. We have a very weird perspective on things. I think it's very new age, like the critical thinking on particular things. Like in the 1990s, like the crime bill was like, yes, this is gonna solve crime, and it's like, oh, made it worse. Oops. You know, we just put a lot of people that smoked weed into jail. Oops. Now let's.
And they're still in jail, even though it's mostly legal now.
It's so crazy, and it's so stupid too, because like I know this is crazy, but I had a friend who was a correctional officer for a while. He quit. He hated it. It was miserable. There's no air conditioning in prisons, at least the one he worked in. And it's like, I know it sounds so silly, but when it's 90 degrees out, and you have not only correctional officers, but you have the inmates sitting in the heat, they're gonna get angry. They're gonna get riled up. It's a real thing.
Oh, for sure.
And it's like, it sounds silly.
Someone was saying my mic's quiet. Let me try.
Is it? Oh, are you looking at the thing?
I was looking at the chat. Also, thank you, chat, for saying.
Thank you for saying it 45 minutes in, guys. What are you doing?
Thank you for saying my weight loss is looking good. I appreciate
Yeah,
it.
I wanted to ask you about the weight loss. So what's going on with that? Because I don't do that. I want to know more about it.
First of all, let me try and fix it. Is the mic sounding better now?
Let me see.
Hopefully.
You know what? Let's see. Is it better now, guys?
I turned up the output volume.
I should have had them do a sound check when they first started. That was my mistake.
Hopefully it's...
Now they're not talking.
Okay.
What is it? Is it? It's good now. Okay, good.
It's gonna... Okay, cool. Yeah, so I've just been trying to lose weight. It has definitely gone way slower than I had hoped it would, but I've kind of just been like, well, you know, as long as it's heading in the right direction. But this month I've been hitting it a lot harder, and I just want to be done with it and just get to my goal so I don't have to keep eating 1,300 calories a day.
Is that what you're eating? Oh, I killed myself, dude. Yeah, you
That's
know
what I'm eating, yeah.
You know, I don't know if this doesn't make you upset, but I maintain at 3,500 calories.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like I'm a muscular man. I used to lift a lot too, and like I love weightlifting. Is that something you've ever considered? Oh, by the way, I know I'm jumping on topics, but what weight did you start at, and what weight are you at now, and what's your goal weight?
I started at 222, and I'm at 194. And my goal would be like 160 to 150, kind of somewhere in there. I want to be like that sort of lean but cut. You know, that's sort of what I'm going for.
Have you looked into like any weightlifting or anything?
I actually just recently started. I got a power tower where you have like the pull-up bar and then push-ups and a dip thing, and I've just been doing like basic.
Oh, that's cool. No, those are good. You can get a lot out of doing bodyweight stuff. There's a lot of good.
That's basically what I've been doing so far.
You know, that's great.
Yeah, I basically just want to build up a little bit of muscle while I am cutting as well.
Yeah, I would say if you're gonna start,
up my metabolism.
Yeah, I say if you start hitting it hard, like don't be afraid to eat a little bit more. Like if your body really desires the food, you know, you don't want to starve yourself too much. If you do, like, there's programs that have you do like 100, whatever push-ups or something a day. I used to do a lot of I used to train for strongmen, and like it was a lot of fun. I was the healthiest of my entire life. I was 330 pounds, and I was like clean bill of health, fantastic. Like I would do like a lot of moving events, like a lot of yoke walks and farmer walks, and it was like a lot of fun. And then, you know, I got into like a very minor car accident, but it like really fucked my back. And then like that's me now. I'm that guy that makes the excuse. It's like, oh, I would have been.
I feel that.
I would have been big. If
I feel that. I was in a musical in high school, and I fell off the set and hurt my back, and it was kind of one of those same things.
Oh, really? Yeah, it really messes you up, man. There was a period.
Back pain is the worst.
It's awful. There was a period.
Like it doesn't go away.
Oh, there was a period of time where I went to pick up a empty bucket off the floor, threw my back out. It took me 5 minutes to stand up straight for like a whole entire week. Like I was messed up. Getting out of my bed was insanity. It was insanity.
That sounds horrible.
It was like, that was my life. And it's like, you know, I remember, I don't know if, I'm sure you know who Joe Rogan is. So. And I remember coming across Joe Rogan, and he was talking to this guy, Robert Oberst. He was like a professional strongman. And he's like, yeah, man, like deadlifting is only good if you want deadlifts to go up. It's a terrible movement. Don't do it because it burns you out quick, and it puts so much stress on your back, and you could throw yourself out. And I was like, wow, like I never thought of it that way. I've always like, yeah, you got to get your deadlift up. And like, you know.
Whenever I see CrossFit people throwing things around, I'm just like, how could that be a good idea for your joints and for like your back?
It's not good. None of those things are good. Like heavy weight training is very stressful on your joints in general. And then like the way they do it, it's like obnoxious. And they get a bad rap because there's some really strong, competitive like CrossFitters. But like I don't think it's entertaining to watch somebody snatch a bar 40 times in a row. It's not impressive. If you've ever watched a CrossFit competition, and then they'll do like, oh, let's snatch something 40 times. Let me do like 50 reps at a bench press, and then do some pull-ups. And it's like, that's not interesting to me. I'd rather see the guy picking up.
You just want to see the
strength,
biggest weight or whatever.
Yeah, or like, you know, I love strongman because it's like very unorthodox and bizarre. But then you'll see somebody walk like a 900-pound yoke, and it's like, wow, that's awesome. That's cool because that's strong. That's not flailing around. I could watch soccer if I wanted to see skinnier guys do shit, and like you're impressed because it's.
I don't even know if I would know what's going on if I watched a CrossFit competition.
No, it's weird.
Explain to me.
The strongman's simple. It's like, yeah, this is the event. We're gonna do this, and it's like, okay, I get it. I'm pretty educated on it now. Yeah, I loved it when I was a kid. Yeah. So cool. So now I'm 30. Yeah. I'm like, ugh, I got to get back to the gym, but like it's impossible because gyms aren't open. At least not in my area.
Yeah, I'm a high risk, so and my dad's like super high risk, so we're just like really quarantining ourselves.
Mind if I ask
So
why, or is it too personal?
no, well, I have asthma and then a history of I've had pneumonia a few times, so it's like my lungs are not the best.
Hmm.
And then my dad has multiple sclerosis with like specifically like respiratory issues.
Oh
So
yes, that's terrible. Because luckily I'm, fine. I worked through the whole thing. I worked for a bus company. I was a manager of the cleaning crew, and it's every day still disinfecting, and it's like a lot, you know.
yeah,
So I probably got it honestly, and I was a carrier. Unfortunately, my uncle passed. He worked in the same company, you know. Eh, it's like that's not real till it's real, you know. It's crazy. Some people are downplaying it. It's like it can hit you.
did he died of the coronavirus?
Yeah, he died of a heart attack,
Oh wow.
like induced by the coronavirus. It's really rough, you know. We finally had a memorial, so like I'm able to talk about it without crying. It's just I know it's like a
Yeah.
little pathetic, but but yeah, man, it
No,
hits
I
you
get
so
it.
quick. Yeah, I had another younger coworker. I haven't worked with him for a long time, and he was young. He was like probably 24. He passed away. Because he had like asthma, and it's like holy shit, like it's taking people out, man. And people like, oh, I don't want to wear a mask. It's like I'm wearing a mask till the end of the year at least. I don't care.
Oh yeah.
Like, what's the issue?
It's just like I mostly just want to, look out for everyone. It's like
Yeah.
if everyone does it, then it helps everyone.
And it's such a bare minimum thing. Put a mask on. I don't want to. It's like, why?
Yeah.
Why do you care? It's like some people walk around like they're tough. It's like I don't need a mask. It's like maybe you don't, but that guy does. Put the fucking mask on.
It's like I just wish it wasn't political. I don't know why
doesn't-
we even have to politicize.
It
that.
doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. And like of this whole thing, and there's so much that's so loaded, but this whole thing, my biggest issue with Trump is that he was forcing the reopening so fast, and so many states like relapse so quickly, all for the economy. And like sometimes you gotta just, if you were that worried about the economy, my friend, just give people more than $1,200 once, and then we would have been okay. But instead, you didn't
Well,
do that.
I just think it's like if you hit it really hard right at first, then hopefully the economy won't suffer in the long run.
Yeah,
But
right.
if you just let it, you know, why am I wearing my headphones weird? I'm trying to hear.
It's okay.
Uh,
No, I get it. Like if you don't hear yourself, it's like weird, it's disorienting. Yeah.
yeah. But what was I saying? But yeah, if you just let it run its course, it's just going to make the economy worse in the long
Yeah,
run.
no, the forced reopenings aren't helping. People are getting sick. They're going back. Like Texas, Florida, huge spikes again, and then places like New York
I just wish
are doing better.
like
They-
I get we have to reopen. I get people have to make money, but it's like if we're gonna reopen, why can't everyone just care about each other and wear the mask?
Yeah,
so
wear
we
the
don't
mask.
have these problems, you know.
Yeah, no, wear the mask, and like that's why it's like New York is still they're still slowly opening, and they're not going to fully reopen ever, not for now. And it's like that makes sense to me because like why like just chill. I had an uncle who visited from Florida. He doesn't wear a mask unless people ask him to. It's like why? Just put the fucking mask. Like I take it off in your car, wear it in the grocery store. How does it hurt? It doesn't.
Yeah,
It doesn't.
I totally agree.
It's such a small thing.
Yeah, I basically I haven't even been to a grocery store or anything. All I've been doing is like going on walks occasionally.
Yeah, right. You got to get out. It really beats you up when you're just.
What do you think about people talking about TikTok might be banned?
Oh, I don't
That's
know.
scary.
If it happens, then
You don't think that'll happen?
I don't know. Like that's it for me. It was a good run. Luckily I've gotten a lot of people on Twitch. I've started up like a YouTube. I can probably sustain decent content, maybe even slowly grow on here. Hopefully, I've been making a little bit of money doing Twitch. Like luckily, I have fantastic followers. So they're very supportive. If it gets banned, like it's one of those things where it's like I'm ready for it. If it happens, it happens. Like that sucks. I think it's a fun platform. I hope it doesn't. I don't think it will, but it might. Who knows? Boomers.
I
run
hope not.
everything.
It's just who knows. We're just living in crazy times. I wouldn't be surprised honestly if it does
Yeah.
get banned. but
No, right. No,
I
you're
don't.
right.
I don't know if I've seen enough evidence that it's like Chinese spyware, but I definitely get the argument that like a Chinese company shouldn't be having this much access to our data. So it's like I.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, because they're talking about like recognition software, like they can map out your room if you're using your thing, and it's like, oof, maybe. I don't know. I don't really have much to hide. They're gonna look at my porn history. Like, go for it. I don't care. It's weird, but that's fine.
At the end of the day, I don't care. But then it's like if you do it on a mass scale, it could be a problem.
Oh yeah, for sure. I know that they didn't allow people in the military to use it and stuff like that, and like minors aren't supposed to use it because they were like Musically was, I believe, actually like confirmed to be collecting data from kids. Like that was like on an NPR story was talking about that, and I was like, really, holy moly, But
I remember when Musically was a big thing, and they were pushing like the gifting on live streams like really hard, and there was like kids making like bank on Musically, but then it was like most of it is from people who have taken their parents' credit cards, so then they got like a whole scandal off of that.
That's so crazy. That's nuts. I mean, I made some money on live, and unfortunately, like I don't have access to my number anymore. So like I'm trying to get TikTok to be like, hey, here's your money. I can't even link my PayPal.
Oh yeah, it's weird. Yeah, it's so annoying.
I hope
and
that
they
respond.
keep 2/3 of the donations.
I think it's half, which is I think it costs. It's like half. You buy the points. It's still nuts. Half is insane. Twitch takes like a third of it.
Really?
Yeah, like you buy
but
like
then you can do like Streamlabs and then.
Yeah, I have like a donation thing, and like they're not too bad. They take 3% plus 30%. So if they give you $1, they get a third. But if they give you $10, what are they getting? Like I don't know. I don't want to do the math, but like less than $1, I guess.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
So it's not that bad. It's okay. Yeah, like 60
Yeah,
cents.
I'm hoping to start streaming a lot and pushing YouTube just in case the shit hits.
It's a good idea. Yeah, just do some stuff. Try to get people on there. Generate the hype around it. What would you stream? Like what kind of content?
I'd probably do music streams where I just maybe write songs on the spot, play covers, or play like relaxation type stuff, and then probably gaming as well.
Yeah, that's a cool idea. You could do that on Twitch or even Facebook. Like those are great. Like you see a lot of people nowadays doing like music streams and stuff. Like it's very popular. I'm surprised. It used to be all gaming. There's a lot of just chattings. There's a lot of people doing like music. That's a great idea. You should definitely go.
I think it's cool. I think it's cool that there are a lot more personality-based people on Twitch now. It's not just the like pro gamers who are becoming popular.
Yeah, like Ninja. I don't want to be Ninja. Some of these people make too much money. Oh my god.
It's crazy. It's like you make almost nothing and then you make more money than you would.
It's the legitimate American dream, my friend. The legitimate.
Yeah, that's
it's
legit.
It's like I want to be a pro gamer. I don't want to shower. I'm gonna play video games, and then maybe it happens. You're like, wow, why? Why me? I don't deserve it.
Yeah.
I'm experiencing.
That's how I feel about like blowing up on TikTok. But
so weird. Like I haven't even left the house. Like I've left the house, but like it's during Corona, so like nobody's noticed me yet. And I started going back to college because I wanted to do computer science to get like a better job. And like I'm like scared. I hope they do it online because I don't want to be recognized in public.
It's a weird thing. The weirdest thing is when someone just stares at you and doesn't say anything, and they just give you the eye of like, is that guy? And then they don't say anything.
Yeah.
It's like, now I'm just feeling creeped out.
With I gotta wear the mask, and then they're like, "Who is that?"
Oh yeah, yeah.
But I gotta walk around with the merch shirt. I gotta walk around with my merch shirt. It's like I'm not him, but maybe I am. Buy this shirt. That's what I gotta do.
Yeah, I was wearing an Unmotivational Monday shirt in public, and someone was like, "Oh, you're that guy." I'm like,
"It's weird,"
and it wasn't even like it's just a weird interaction.
It sounds exciting. Almost. I would want to do a meet and greet. That would be cool.
Yeah.
That would be awesome.
Yeah,
but,
that'd be dope.
That'd be fun.
I really want to write a comedy show, like a musical comedy show, like a full-on thing, and then.
That's a cool idea. You should do that.
Tour with it.
Put it on. Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. Do that. Put it on YouTube too, man. Just have somebody record it. That'd be lit. You should do something like that. I have a friend who like he didn't tell her, but like she's like, oh, look at this guy. Look at his content. She actually liked my content. I was surprised because most women don't. Actually, 30% of my followers are women. That's surprising to me. But and he's like, oh, okay.
I think there's like a higher demographic of women in general on TikTok.
Oh, so now you're just trying to tell me that I'm not special. All right, I thought women were loving my content. But
well, I have like 70% women on TikTok and then like 70% men on YouTube for whatever
really?
That means.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it's weird.
That's bizarre. But yeah, like he didn't give it away, but I'm like, wow, it's so weird people know who I am. It's very weird. And they call me Papa.
Or when my friends will be like, one of my friends shared your video with me. And I'm like,
that's cool. That's strange, but that's kind of cool, man. It's weird. Like that's, I like a celebrity is weird. It's very bizarre. You should do.
I just don't like the whole like it's like this crazy double-edged sword where people will like stand someone so hard and then like cancel them so hard.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah,
everyone
they'll
just
hate
needs
you
to chill
so
out.
much. Oh yeah.
It's like don't put people up on a pedestal, but then also maybe be a little bit more forgiving before you just torch them into the ground.
Like
you know?
what is his name? Shane Dawson. Is that who we're talking about?
Oh yeah, Shane Dawson. Well,
What's your take on
Shane Dawson is. I've been a fan of Shane Dawson. I get the whole thing of like, okay, he was on YouTube when it was like a much more edgy.
Yeah, much more.
Like
edgy.
everyone was doing edgy content. Filthy Frank was making edgy stuff. iDubbbz was making edgy stuff. But then when you get into it, there's like a video of him like doing a video chat online where he like asks a 12-year-old to twerk for him, and I'm like, that is
12-year-old.
I
still like, quite. So 12-year-old girl or boy?
Girl.
See, only he's gay, so like only maybe it's not so like that's the thing. It's so hard because like what it's
regardless of like what your intentions are, I still feel like that's like taking advantage of someone. Even if you're not getting any gratification out of that,
for sure.
Still is like don't tell a child to.
I haven't seen it, but I'm assuming he wasn't like, oh, do this so I can. I think he was just being stupid.
Yeah, it was like he thought it was funny because he like had a whole joke off of like I'm a pedophile, which is
right, yeah,
it's
a dangerous joke. Yeah, no, you can't because you get canceled. If I made those jokes, I'm done because everybody thinks I am now because.
Well, but
no, but I get what you're saying.
And like I Vaush made this point of like if you just let everyone joke that they're a pedophile, then the real ones are never gonna get like noticed, and you're never gonna be able to like catch the real.
That's true. Was he specifically talking about Shane Dawson? Because I think that
he was talking about Shane Dawson.
Yeah, it's just I get what he's saying, but then also it's like I can make the argument that if we normalize pedophilia, then to an extent, not normalize it, that's okay. Then maybe pedophiles would be more be more willing to come forward and get medical help instead of and actually get treated instead of molesting children. Because a pedophile, not hot take, but pedophiles aren't necessarily child molesters. I'm not trying to defend pedophilia.
It's a mental disorder.
And it's like my thing is once you molest a child, you should be castrated. I'm totally for that. Death penalty, castration, fine. But like before that fact, like if we're going to have an empathetic society, that's like you kind of have to take the responsibility and be like, okay, like what can we do to stop it? Because a lot of times, a lot of pedophiles are people who have experienced trauma like that before. They've experienced the same trauma. They were molested.
They need to be able to get mental. They need to be able to get mental help and not just. Because definitely, if you instantly call them evil, then they're just gonna
stay in the shadows, and it's gonna perpetuate.
To abuse someone.
Yeah. But my thing with Shane Dawson.
It's a really tough situation.
Oh yeah, it's hard because it's pedophiles too. Like, how do you sit here and like act like publicly go, pedophiles aren't that bad? It's like,
They are, yeah.
Maybe Peaches was right. Like, they're not hurting you. You're not a child. Why do you care? I don't know much about her, but it's so funny. But with Shane Dawson, the biggest thing I have an issue with is like all these people who are canceling him now are the people who consumed his content to make him popular in the first place, and like they're just so like he's made the content, but you were consuming it and you laughed, and now you're gonna shit on him for it, and it's like you're just as bad. You made him popular.
I get the argument of like maybe they were consuming his content when they were like 8 years old, and now that they're older, they can like realize, okay, this was actually really predatory.
Sure, but you can make the same argument for him too.
With someone who was like when someone was like 18 watching Shane Dawson and they just were like, haha, that pedophile joke really funny, and now they're canceling him. It's like, okay,
that's if he didn't get famous off of it, he wouldn't have made the content, and like that's something there, and he's not making it anymore. That's the big kicker for me. His content, my understanding of his content is it's kind of wholesome now. I think. Yeah. I don't know if that's true. I don't.
Yeah, he got rid of the whole like trying to be edgy for the sake of.
Yeah, because he got popular. He shifted his content, and like he did the responsible thing. If he was still doing, it's not like he was like, oh, Black Lives Matter is big now. Let me bring back Shanae or whatever racist caricature he had. He's like, he's still moving forward and he's changing. So that's my.
I have a mixed feeling. I feel like he should be. I feel like he did some things that, in my opinion, crossed the line, and he should be held accountable. But then also, we do need to let people be able to grow and like.
Yeah, and also like we gotta acknowledge the time, and we have to like people. We need to acknowledge how fast time moves. It's super fast. Like 10 years was massively different, and I don't like Shane Dawson because I think he had the conspiracy palette, and it was a terrible release, and he's I know that I'm not big into what my girlfriends are. But like, I don't like it from a business sense. But it's like, if people heard what I said when I was like 18 on video games, it'd be terrible. I was such a dumb piece of shit, borderline racist and everything. And it's like and I know it's just like those were it wasn't
my
an
perspective is definitely my perspective is like 99.9% of people, if you just had a video that was their entire life and it was just uploaded to the internet, every single person would be canceled probably. Like like most people have, even the people who are going to go and cancel other people, you've said some sort of joke or you've said something that would get you canceled if you're if you were out there.
For sure. Yeah. And it's like
I just feel like you shouldn't cancel someone else if you're canceling them for like there was a girl on TikTok who was like trying to cancel someone for saying the N-word, and then it came out that she said the N-word.
Yeah,
like,
right.
okay,
It's like, well, you're moral high ground. You're moral. It's like Emma Lou.
That's who I'm talking about.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, Emma Lou. Yeah. The first video I made on my new account was about Emma Lou. It didn't even hit. I was very upset. But it was just some.
But yeah, I have a character that I do called Woke Wednesday, and it kind of pokes fun at the hyper left people. Yeah. Even though I'm very progressive and liberal myself, I just feel like some people.
I get it, yeah.
When you just get so into like canceling everyone, and you're acting like you don't have any of that stuff in your own past, and then it comes up that you did have that in your own past.
It's silly.
And then it's like, okay, well, now you're gonna get canceled because you were canceling other people.
Yeah, right. I hate cancel culture in general. Like, I don't know what the young girl's name, the Asian girl who graduated from Harvard. You got to be up to date on that too.
Yeah.
Right?
CJ.
Yeah, she blocked me for making like I made like a legitimate criticism of a video that she made, or maybe I didn't. Who knows? Who knows anymore? I think I did, and she blocked me a while ago. But then I heard about it, and people were like, "Yeah, we got to cancel her. It's so funny," and like not to drag it on too much because I know we're getting towards like the time to stop. But my perspective here was that, and I know this is a very weird. Maybe I'm overthinking it, but my perspective here was that, generally speaking, cancel culture predominantly impacts more conservative people. In this sense, you can consider conservatives the oppressed in the cancel culture sphere. And the entire conservative argument is, let's say black people in particular, is that you're oppressed and you need to play the moral high ground to hit equality. So you need to not want revenge, basically, as a black individual. But then they'll turn around and you see so many conservatives championing oppressing the oppressor when it comes to a progressive person getting canceled. And it's like, you can't tell black people to get over it and not want to oppress the oppressor, and then you wanting to do the same thing with a progressive. You need to...
Yeah, a conservative trying to be like, haha, cancel culture is getting you now.
Yeah, I don't like that.
Exact same... It's
the exact same thing
as women saying kill all men. It's
like it is. It
like,
is.
You're just... You can't say something's toxic and then laugh when it happens to someone on the other side.
And
think it's toxic regardless.
Right, and that the guy, hillbilly guy, he's like he's a cool guy. He's a TikToker. He has like 1 million views or 1 million followers, and he's like a conservative, like red hillbilly. I don't know what his thing is.
I think I know who you might be talking about.
He's a cool guy, but he made a video about that, and then I said like, hey, listen, I proposed what I said, and it's like, it was not like she made a joke. She was like, "Oh, I'm gonna cut you," and then when you complain about it, I'm gonna show you my finger and say, "Oh, my boo boo matters too." And it's like, it was dumb, and I definitely think that she's coming from a place of, not to be use trigger words, but place of privilege, where she probably didn't necessarily work that hard in her life, and she doesn't really have and she's not purely empathetic. She latches onto like the progressive movement, which is fine, I get it, but she's not purely empathetic. She doesn't really necessarily have that, empathy. She didn't develop like an empathy by dealing with people who didn't align with her views, and like now she's saying things that are very hurtful, and like it's politically correct to say those things, so we like let it go. It's okay, and then like I get that, but like she shouldn't have been canceled. I don't think that she lost a job. It was really just like an internship, but still, she lost an opportunity, For what?
I think saying I'm gonna stab you regardless is definitely a tasteless thing to say.
For
and,
sure,
you
yeah.
know, of course, like threatening violence regardless is definitely gonna make the other side get angry at you, even if you were being satirical. Because I do think it was satirical because
Oh,
she
yeah.
was saying stab you and then say my paper cut matters too. Like that's
Yeah.
clearly a satirical.
Right.
You know,
But she wasn't gonna stab anybody, and like, you know, but then she gets
No,
canceled and
but-
everybody champions it.
It's like, haha, you got what was coming to you. It's like when everyone's stuck
Yeah,
in this
right.
you got what was coming to you mindset, then everyone's just gonna end up in flames. So that's kind of
Yeah, it's like, oh, we deserve a second chance for saying the N word when we were 13, but this, you know what I mean? It's like, and I think you do.
But this girl,
But this
is gonna
girl
get destroyed. And
destroyed. Like she worked. Like listen, she worked hard to get where she got, and then like we're going to deny her an opportunity because we're upset that she didn't have a rule set that aligned with her. Rather than using this as an opportunity and example to say like, hey, do you understand like what you're saying is toxic? You don't deserve to lose your opportunity, but it's not nice. But nobody's promoting that message.
Let's just not even make any jokes where we threaten violence against people.
Yeah, for sure.
'Cause if a conservative made a joke where he says he's gonna stab a black person, then yeah, that would be like
That would be pretty bad.
yeah.
That would be terrible.
even if he's like I'm being satirical,
I'm
it's like,
making a
well,
joke.
Okay, but that's like,
Yeah, no, yeah, jokes. Oof.
I think it's a hard thing because I use satire so often, but then I also get annoyed when people just throw out it's a joke whenever they don't want to take responsibility for the
Yeah,
point
no,
they were
right.
making with their joke.
And you could tell it
It's
wasn't
like
a joke.
It's like jokes have points. There's still a perspective that you have when you're making your joke.
Oh, yeah.
Unless you are just trying to legitimately troll and
Right.
just anger people for the sake of angering people. But
A lot of times people don't even make a joke, and then after they get called out, like, I was just kidding. And it's like, you weren't kidding.
no, I don't
You know?
think it
And
doesn't seem that way.
And if you joke about how women are objects, then you there's a level of personal truth there, you know, probably.
Yeah.
It might be just
You're not just saying that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. For the most part, it's probably that. Like, I make a couple of jokes about it, you know, but I don't think that. But then I also make content that, like, completely course corrects what I say, you know. It depends. It really depends on, like, how you're pushing it out there. And some people can be very mean about it. So, you know.
It depends on the person. Like I feel like there are certain people that do just legitimately edgy humor really well, but the majority of people aren't smart enough to do edgy
No, they're
humor
not.
well. If that makes sense.
No, I
feel
get
like,
it.
Like Filthy Frank, I love his edgy humor. He'll just say whatever, but it's like he is attacking everything constantly, so there's no like malice behind what he's doing. You know?
Right, yeah. That's a hard, too, because sometimes it's just presentation. Like, I mean, I think I do edge jokes well. I present them well, but I'm very typecast as a racist conservative just based on my looks. So I get, if I looked like a young liberal kid, I could get away with it more. You know what I mean? Like my
Potentially, yeah.
better at least. But I look like a legitimate KKK member.
Well, you're the stereotype of the neckbeard or whatever.
Yeah, like I look like a neo-Nazi. I'm not at all.
I don't know what I look like. I look like a
Nah, you look alright.
fat theater kid or something.
Not that you're not really fat. You look like I guess you look like a theater kid, like a band kid. You know.
Yeah.
It's like
Someone said my humor is band kid humor, and I'm like, well,
that's not nothing wrong with that.
that doesn't make me. That's not the worst thing for someone to say, I guess.
Nah, band kids are chill now. Back in the day, we beat them up, but I'm just kidding. Before we end, I don't know if there's any couple questions anybody wants to ask before we pop out of here. A lot of people are
I
complimenting
had
our
one.
looks.
I had one. I know
Yeah.
we're both the most attractive people on TikTok.
Yeah, right.
Obviously.
That's what they're saying. I'm not disagreeing with them.
Yeah. I've got one question. What would you say is like the definition of virtue signaling in your opinion? Because I hear that kind of tossed around, and I
get what
like
you're
wonder
saying.
what you mean exactly by virtue signaling.
So when I say virtue signaling, it's generally it's somebody saying something that's usually politically correct that they know is going to get attention from it, and they're saying it in a very disingenuous way. You can tell that so many people were Black Lives Matter virtue signaling, and they didn't really care about the issue. They were really just throwing it out there because they knew it would generate them views. And that's what I consider it. And like, even if they're not necessarily virtue signaling, I think that, for instance, like the day where we didn't, where no white people were supposed to post, that's just a virtue signaling idea that doesn't promote equality. There was probably a better way to do it. As much, even though I gave 60 shit for it, like his idea of like, you know, duetting a black person makes more sense to me. Use your platform to perpetuate other people that
to,
yeah.
to lift someone up.
If they said like, "Hey, duet a black creator today," I probably would have done it. But like, just not talking for a day, I was like, "That's dumb. That's not a good solution."
Yeah, like I saw someone being like white people stop trying to bring light to this issue because it's black people should be bringing light to this issue, and it's like,
yeah, unfortunately,
everyone's trying to. It's a tough thing.
Well, unfortunately, and this is unfortunately, it's not very politically correct to say, but not most people in America, whether you're progressive or not, they don't care what black people have to say. I'm not trying to be a dick, but a lot of progressive people, they don't really want the message from a black person. They don't really find them to be the traditional attractive messenger for it. They'll latch onto people who they find more Western, and they're like, oh, I'll listen to this person, because it's like a subconscious bias towards people that fit like a particular beauty standard. That's why you see a lot of popular white creators that got a lot of traction through the whole Black Lives Matter thing.
Duet the Black Lives Matter thing, and then they're not saying anything, they're not contributing anything, they're just like, I stand with it, and then all their fans are like,
for sure. And it's like one of those things where white people can just consume people better. Like, I don't, this isn't like a shot at her, but like the fat raccoon, that girl, and like, this is nothing to diminish her content, but she has very, what you'd consider in a Western culture, more attractive white features. Other than her dark complexion, she has like a petite kind of a face, like a nose that's petite, like a facial structure. It's she has silkier hair. I know it's silly. I don't want it to come off as racist, but like, white people consume that message so much better because they go, oh, look, this person, I find them subconsciously attractive and they fit and they're safe. But you're not listening to the 50-year-old guy who's a little bit jaded, like 50-year-old black guy who's jaded and lived through like the real shit, because like, they're not attractive.
I can see what you're saying.
And they don't
I definitely do
articulate.
Yeah, whether it's a Western, I mean, I definitely do think there's that subconscious of everyone having the ideal image in their head of like what someone should look like, even if they don't say that. And like, I'm not racist, but they still,
right.
Yeah, there's definitely pretty privilege, I guess people would call it.
Yeah, there is. It's like the halo effect. Like, there's a standard, and there's people who look better, and like, if you know how to articulate yourself, I mean, that's considered a white trait. It shouldn't be, but like, people listen to that person more because they can present their message and they look safe. And I know it sounds weird. I know it's bizarre. But I mean, if you think on that perspective for a little bit,
but it's a thing that you need to like realize and like work through, and being like, okay,
oh yeah,
maybe I am listening to this more because of certain reasons, and being like, okay, I need to stop doing that.
Yeah, right, yeah. So it's unfortunate, but yeah, I don't know. Oh, I don't know if you had any other questions. If not, I'll see if I can take one or two from these guys before we break off.
Sure.
So I don't know if you guys have anything to say other than that we're both very attractive. I mean, you could say it again, but
that's obvious. But
it's obvious. Yeah. I mean, you can ask me questions, but you're supposed to ask him questions. I'll be here after the stream. Maybe I'll run for president in 12 years. We'll see how my career goes.
I'm wearing my headset wrongly because it's not coming back through the headset what I'm saying, so I'm trying to be able to hear myself. So that's a.
What are you asking? Are they asking you what's your opinion on gun laws? I don't know.
Is that me?
I don't know. I think they're just trying to ask me. Ask me after. Ask that. Like, I want to know.
Ask me something.
So,
you care about me.
Yeah, ask him something. I mean, gun laws are fine. I've talked about it before. I wish if we can eliminate poverty or greatly reduce it, we can expand gun laws because there'd be less crime with guns. That's my opinion on it. But we can't do that until
I like what Japan does, where they are like, just there's more you have to go through before you can get one.
They should be. Yeah, there should be. Somebody had mentioned before, like, oh, ask them about, like, 'cause you get a lot of hate. They said you get a lot of unfair hate. I think you commented on the comment. A lot of unfair hate. Is that for your political stuff? Is that what they're talking about?
Yeah, they were saying that because I was basically, for a long time, I was sort of apolitical, or I would just like sort of hint at political things. But then with the Black Lives Matter movement, I was speaking much more overtly about things, and then people are like, he's political now, and I'm like, well, I'm not trying to like. I did make a video where I was like saying that I missed Obama, and I kind of regret doing that because that is like, okay, but I mean,
I miss Obama.
Because I miss Obama too.
I'll say
but then it's like people are like, it's like, should I listen to all those people who are like, you are not political and now you are political, so now your content isn't good anymore? It's like,
yeah, well, I get that.
I'm speaking about what I care about, but then also I understand if you know, you want to watch my content to laugh and have an escape, and you're not watching it to hear my political opinions, and you probably
Yeah, that's what I would assume and more, because I would imagine you have more progressive followers, and that's probably what it is. Because like you get you beat up when you get engaged in that kind of stuff, and it's like, you know, people are like, oh, I'm gonna consume this, and they're like, oh, I don't want to hear that.
Well, I definitely like, yeah. Now I've had like more people coming and attacking me once I was more overt about things, you know.
Yeah, right. That makes sense.
Ryan, do you feel your mom taught you history well at school? I was homeschooled.
That's what I asked. Yeah.
I was homeschooled up until, but I did go to like a private school part-time. No, I do not think I was taught history well. I had Christian textbooks that said that, like...
Are you anti-religion? I'm just kidding.
I'm not anti-religion. I just don't want bias in my history book. I just want to like know the facts of what happened. I don't want you to tell me how great all these conservative people were and how awful all these liberal people were. And that was like in my history book.
Yeah.
Or like in my government class, my government teacher explaining why Obama's terrible, and I'm like, I don't. Just tell me about like how the government works. Please don't.
Yeah. We don't need your political perspective on it. Yeah.
I don't need an agenda in my like, you know, classes. I don't know.
So, I guess last question. I don't know what AGT is. Somebody keeps asking you about that.
Oh, America's Got Talent.
Oh, you were on America's Got Talent?
I was on that a few years ago, yeah.
That's cool. I didn't know that. I'm very out of the loop. That's pretty cool, man. Is that how you blew up?
That, not exactly. I got like a little surge of like followers off of that, but then it pretty much died off for a few years. TikTok's really like where I started like taking off, basically.
That's pretty cool.
But that was a cool experience. It's just so produced and so like everything is perfectly manicured in this box of what they want it to be, which they're making a television show, so it makes sense. But I actually went and auditioned again this year. I got to audition in front of like the judges and everything, and
this year?
This year, yeah. I went for a second time this year, and it's looking like they're not even going to air my audition.
Really? Oh, right, because it's all online now, right?
Yeah.
That's silly. You know, we should all just get coronavirus, so we can have it.
Well, no, they have my audition, and like they're just not airing it because they don't air every audition. So they're just like, sense. They put me in the commercial for the show, and then they didn't even air my audition. So it's
that's unfortunate.
They hyped me up, and I told my followers I was going to be on, and then they just don't put me on the show. It's like, well,
that sucks. That's lame. Well,
it sucks. Yeah.
Oh well. All right, man. It was great talking to you. Oh, sorry. Would you want to ask one last thing? What do you got?
Oh, well, someone asked what my view on abortion was. I think that's a great.
All right, we'll end it with that one.
So what's not polarizing at all.
No, right. If you want to answer it, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, my perspective is it's like if you think that it's like the same as like killing, it's such a hard debate because you come from two completely philosophically different perspectives, and I just feel like demonizing either side of like calling one side baby killers and calling the other side, you know, whatever.
Yeah,
it's
right.
just, not
anti-woman.
It's not productive.
Yeah, no, I think that generally speaking. Oh, sorry. Continue.
My perspective is I definitely fall under the body autonomy argument of like you shouldn't have to like give your blood to someone else, you know. So that means you shouldn't have to like give your body to raising a child inside of you.
I get that.
Where I end up on it.
My thing more is I'm pro-choice, and my thing more out of anything else is like, unfortunately, both whether you're pro-life or pro-choice, pro-lifers tend to be under the thoughts or rule set or thought process of you should birth the baby and then just like let it ride, and like it's a very like let's say dated Darwinistic type of thing where it's like if it lives, and or maybe it'll be like the next greatest person in the world. Chances are it's going to be one of the worst because usually
that's the American dream.
And then when it comes to pro-choice, and pro-choice is like, oh, population control. People get to choose before they come out and have the ability to think critically in any capacity. So it's like we need population control regardless. We could argue that they're both as ruthless. I tend to fall on pro-choice. It is cheaper for society in general, and I come from like a societal perspective. And so like if we're going to be bankrolling people with disabilities, which is not a bad thing, and I think we should, when we need to start implementing ways to, and we have a very high quality of life. We need to implement ways where you could control a population in some capacity. That's kind of where I lie with it more.
And definitely, filling the foster care system is not.
Oh, it's already bad
help
enough as it
society.
is, for sure. So.
But I definitely do fall into this like argument of if you can like check that someone has Down syndrome and then you like get an abortion because you don't want to have someone with Down syndrome, that feels like morally like
I would do
gray
that.
to me.
I would do
You
that.
would do that.
Totally, yeah. I mean, it's my wife's choice.
I feel like you have a very like utilitarian.
Yeah, listen, my thing is like I have no problem with my tax dollars going towards supporting people with disabilities. I think they create jobs. I think that I've interacted with people. One of my girlfriends works with people directly with disabilities. She's she's in a behavioral intervention specialist. But me personally, I have no problem. I mean, we're split into the haves and have-nots. We're going to become more and more of that. I want my children to be haves. I want my children to perpetuate a brighter future. I want my children to be, honestly, better than everybody else. Not in a way where, like, everyone else is like, oh, I'm better than you. But in a way where it's like we're perpetuating society. I want a bloodline that contributes heavily to the betterment of society. And unfortunately, having Down syndrome is not necessarily something that you can't really do much in the way of moving forward in society, you know. And like, I know it's harsh. I would never advocate for anybody else getting rid of their baby because it might have Down syndrome. But for me personally, it is something that I would want to do. It's up to the people, you know, that like obviously it's up to the woman. I'm not gonna be like, you have to get rid of it. I'll raise a kid with Down syndrome if it comes to that. But, you know, that's just my view. And I know it's very intense, but
yeah, I guess it depends on whether you fall on the side of like society is more important or the individual is more important, and then
I take society almost every time. Of course, the individual should be selfish to a degree, but my whole moral set completely lies on the idea that I want humanity to outlive the sun. I know it's silly, but the sun will disappear one day, and to outlive it, we need to just constantly push technological advancement, and that's my thing. And we should have a society that is humane. We need to value things like that more in society, but there's going to be some concessions.
And that's why I think the idea of like getting rid of capitalism is a little bit ridiculous, because capitalism is the reason why we've had so many advancements.
Yeah.
If there wasn't capitalism, would we have pushed things to the place that they are?
No.
Probably not.
You can make the argument that
that's why.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just think you have to like have good, regulations in place so they don't just.
Oh yeah, just screw everybody. Yeah, I mean, my argument is that generally speaking, I think that the poorest people in our capitalism probably live better than most people do in a communist country. If we implemented a pure communist country, there's no real reason to better yourselves. We don't. I mean, that's why I like capitalism. Values people who contribute more, but of course, there's a very heavy aspect to our rich where they don't contribute. They're just living off of generational wealth, and they're just having other people invest their money. So perpetuate just permanent generations.
Yeah, like trust fund kids who don't accomplish anything. Yeah.
Right, exactly. And like that's like an issue, you know? So, that's my thing. Anyway, let me shut the sorry for cutting it off. My chat's getting spammed. I don't know why. I guess people.
Why do they show microwave?
Yeah, they're just like no. They're just like spamming the shit out of me. So anyway, man, it was nice talking to you. I appreciate you coming by.
Yeah,
it was a really good talk.
Conversation, man.
Yeah, I loved it a lot, and maybe have you on in the future. That'd be great, man. So
that'd be great. Yeah. Everyone who's watching, go follow me on Twitch, Ryan Official, because I'm gonna start streaming. Unless you hate me, then please.
Yeah. Let me know what your thing is. Message me on Discord, and I'll follow. You know. So
cool.
All right, my man. Have a good one. Talk to you later.
Have a good one. Yeah, you too.
Peace. All right, I gotta re-up the stream real quick.